I cannot believe she just said that about me on Instagram. I will be blocking you. Blocked. Hey crafters, welcome to this week's Tutorial Tuesday. So no, that's not the kind of blocking that I'm talking about today. We're not talking about blocking followers on your Instagram feed or social media. We are talking about blocking crochet or even knit projects. Now maybe you're not familiar with blocking. I wasn't super familiar with blocking for a long time, and then when I finally did start to understand it, I was like, why do I actually need to do that? So let's first tackle what exactly is blocking. The best way I think to describe it is with an example. I recently made this Tunisian crochet checkerboard. Hopefully I have some pics of before I blocked it that I'm showing. Hopefully you're seeing those on screen. If you aren't, just try to picture it. But if you are, you can probably see in the picture that it's curling a lot. Tunisian crochet in particular is so notorious for curling. You get done with the work and it just like rolls up in a little like cinnamon roll, and that's cute and all, but it really makes it difficult when you're actually trying to use your project. So with this checkerboard, you don't really want to play checkers on something that's like this. So what blocking does, blocking is a method to make your projects lay flat, lay even, and be smooth in how they're supposed to be instead of curling or not being even. By using the process of blocking, I was able to get this to lay flat. Now it's still a little bit wonky in some spots. That's because of the single crochet border, but this is so much better than what it was, and this is actually usable now. Like you could actually play checkers on this board. So now that we understand what blocking is, what are some reasons why we might want to block? With my checkerboard, there were a lot of stuff. Some of it was just because of Tunisian crochet. You can't really help that curl. Part of it was because I made some mistakes. I've got another project that I desperately need to block. It is this. This is going to be a shawl. This is supposed to be a perfect rectangle. This side is a lot shorter than this side. You might be going, why? What happened? Did I lose stitches? So in this case, the material itself is already kind of square and it's laying nice and flowy, but it's really uneven because I made a mistake. What I'm hoping to accomplish by blocking is I'm hoping to be able to stretch this side out that's thinner to make it match the width of the size that I use the larger hook with. And blocking is especially helpful when you're doing things that you're going to wear, not like a scarf, but like clothing, like a vest or a sweater, things like that, because then when you go to put your pieces together, everything lines up a lot better and the fabric just tends to flow and fit better. Blocking is also super awesome for things done with crochet thread. This is a little doily pattern thing that my great-grandmother made years ago. So I'm gonna also block this one today, and as you can see, it kind of doesn't quite lay flat, so we're gonna block this, provide a little bit of stretch just like that to make it more even so it'll lay flat and smooth. So let's talk about what we actually need for blocking. There's lots of different methods, but the method I'm going to show you today is going to be a method where we wash it, really we're gonna let it soak, and then we're going to let it dry. Now the trick with letting it dry is we're going to pin it down so that way when it dries it's going to hold the shape. Letting it kind of washing it, letting it soak is going to soften the fibers. We're going to squeeze a bunch of the water out, spread out our project, and get it to dry in the shape we want. And when we're all said and done, hopefully it will be an improvement over when we started. As far as materials, you're going to obviously need whatever project you're going to be blocking. You're going to need something to contain some water, so you can use sink, you can use a tub. I actually have a 55-gallon plastic bucket sitting in my tub that I filled up, and that's because I didn't want to fill the whole tub up. You can also use soap or detergent when you're letting it soak. So first of all, you don't have to use any kind of soap or detergent. Using just water is good enough. I personally like using either soap or detergent just because I feel like it helps get some of the dyes out a little bit more and prevent the dyes from running when I do future washings of the project. Also, soap can be a really great way to kind of soften the fibers. This is an item that I've actually run through the washing machine, and this is made in Red Heart acrylic yarn. Red Heart, I love it, but I love it because it's so versatile, but it's not always the softest. After washing this, because of just a little bit of soap and detergent, it's a lot softer. So what kind of soap should we use? I would recommend either using just a basic detergent. This is all free and clear, which means it has no dyes or perfumes. You want to make sure that you're not using something that's like super chemical, harsh, especially if you're not sure how your yarn is going to react to it. You don't want to ruin your project in the process of blocking. But something like all free and clear is just a very simple, And the back is like tough on stains, gentle on skin. You know, so it's a good product that won't be too harsh for your yarn. Another option is to use original Dawn dish soap. This obviously isn't Dawn. This is the Great Value knockoff brand, same thing. If you're using a Dawn dish soap, use the blue original kind. Don't get like the orange ones or one that's like tough on grease. Make sure you get original, because if you get something that's like tough on grease, it's gonna be a lot harsher for your project. A note on water, we want to make sure that our water is not super hot. So I just use cool water, room temperature water, because if our water's too hot, it can cause the fibers to shrink. In blocking, usually we're trying to more stretch things out and make them more even versus causing it to shrink up on itself. The last thing we're going to need is a surface to put our projects on when they're drying and something to pin them in place. So they sell these really cool blocking boards. You can make blocking boards. Maybe one day I'll get around to that, but that hasn't happened for me yet. So for the sake of simplicity and because it's cheap, here's what I would recommend. Basic push pins, pick these up at Walmart, the dollar store, buy a million of these in bulk off of Amazon, just basic push pins. The needle just needs to be long enough to go through your fabric. I didn't have any problems with these ones, even though as you can see, they're really short. We're gonna use the push pins to pin our project in place while it dries. What surface are we going to use? Okay, I've got 3 ideas. If you've got some random foam and your project is small enough to fit on your piece of foam, use that. If not, but you order a ton of stuff off of Amazon, or even if you just have cardboard sitting around, if you have a big enough piece of cardboard that you can do this on, use that. It'll work great, and you know, it doesn't really cost you anything if it was something that was already shipped to your place. My last suggestion is to get some foam board from the dollar store. This is a great option because it's super cheap and they're already like these nice big chunks. This isn't what I'm actually using. I've got a bigger piece. This is my sister's school project. It's a game board for Animal Farm. It's actually really cool. But anyways, this stuff is just foam. I'm gonna squish it a little bit. This is what I'm going to be blocking on today. Works super well. Now that we've gone over materials and you know actually what we're trying to accomplish, let me show you the super simple process of how to block your crochet projects. Alright, step 1, we're going to wash/soak our projects. I've got a container of water, and I'm going to put my projects in the water. You may notice that I am putting several different projects with several different colors, several different types of yarn in here. I would be careful about doing this. I'm doing this because I've either washed these things before and I know that the colors won't run, or else it's a project I'm not really concerned if other colors run onto it. But definitely keep that in mind. Kind of wash it like you would if you were washing clothes, where you know you want to do your new blue jeans that are going to run with your favorite white shirt. So I'm just getting these in the water. I'm kind of squeezing them to let them absorb water. Big poncho. Again, I'm kind of squeezing it to get the air out of it so they really absorb water. And then today, I kind of arbitrarily decided I'm going to go with the detergent. I'm not going to use a ton. You really don't need a lot. I don't think it's the end of the world if you use too much, but I'm just doing a little bit. I'm just going to pour a little in the cap here. Okay, I've got just a little bit in the cap that's kind of hard to see with the way the lighting is, but I'm just going to dump that in here. And now that my detergent's in there, I'm just going to swirl this water around so that way my project's actually soak in some of the detergent. Okay, I put a little too much in. It's like really sudsy. So part of the reason why I said don't put too much in is because we are going to rinse our projects out. You know, we're kind of like washing this by hand. You could throw it in the washer, but I'm not a fan of that because it tends to agitate the fibers a lot, and especially if it's something that you're not sure how it's going to handle being washed, I would recommend doing it by hand because then you can control things a little bit easier. Okay, so like I said, you only need a little bit of detergent. This is kind of a lot. And now all we have to do is wait. I usually let mine soak like overnight, and that's kind of arbitrary as well. I like to leave it soaking long enough so that way the fibers can really soften from the water and just really relax. And overnight has just worked conveniently for me. If you're doing this in the middle of the day, I'll probably, like I am today, I'll probably leave these in here for 2 or 3 hours, and then we'll come back and work on our next step. So my projects have been soaking for about 2 to 3 hours, and now it's time to get them out. But the gist of what needs to happen next is we need to rinse the soap out of these projects and then squeeze a lot of the water out. So I'm gonna start by dumping out the water from in my tub. So our next objective is to get the soap out of these projects. So because I'm doing this in the tub, or if you do it in a sink, it's also as convenient. I'm just gonna turn the water on and rinse these out. Again, my goal right now is just to get the soap out. If you didn't use any kind of soap, then you don't have to worry about this step. All right, so I forgot to mention that we also will need some towels. So we are just about to the actual blocking part. What we've done so far is we have soaked our fabrics, then we rinse the soap out. If you didn't use soap, you didn't need to rinse the soap out. But the next thing I need to do is get as much of the water out of these as possible to speed up the drying time. So if you're doing something that's like really delicate, or if the fibers themselves are delicate, like if you're using wool or something like that, you might want to be careful with this. But these are pretty durable materials, so I'm able to just kind of wad it up and squeeze water out. But if it's a more delicate item, you're probably going to want to kind of fold it and squeeze gently like that. So I'm just squeezing. There's a little bit more water coming out of there. And next I'm going to use a towel to get that last bit of water out before we block. So I'm just gonna take my towel, kind of leave it open like this. Once I squeeze the water out, I'm gonna set my item on the towel, and I'm gonna kind of leave it spread out because when I squeeze this water out, I don't want to distress the fabric too much. Again, the more delicate your materials are, the more careful you're gonna wanna be. So something like Red Heart, or even like the mandala yarn that the shawl is made from, it's pretty durable, so you don't need to be super careful. Okay, so again, I've got that. I'll squeeze this one out, last little bit. I'm try to spread these out, and basically I'm just gonna kind of roll them up in the towel and then squeeze the water out. So I'm just gonna kind of fold this side over, and then just kind of gently keep rolling, like so. Make a nice crochet project sausage, and I'm just gonna kind of squeeze like this. And by spreading them out gently and rolling them, that ensures that when we do the squeezing, we're not distressing the fabric too much. Again, the projects I'm doing today, I'm able to be pretty rough with them because they're pretty durable. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and squeeze the water out of my gray shawl here as well. Again, the purpose of this is just to speed up the drying process for when it's blocked. All right, so I think it'll fit on this board. This is the styrofoam board that I was talking about. Now, last time I did stuff on this side, and as you can see, the water kind of made the coloring on this side run. I didn't have any of that coloring ooze into my fabric, but if you're concerned about that, then just work on the white side. So I'm going to unroll my towel. If my towel's pretty wet, you'd be surprised how much water your projects can hold. Like, this is really wet there. And that is my item. Now again, the point of blocking is to get it to be the shape that you want. If we look at this is the side that's looser than this side. Now, it did get a little bit stretched out as we've done some ringing stuff. That's totally okay with me. But I'm gonna try to stretch everything to be the same width in hopes that when it dries, it'll be a little more straight. You may also notice it goes off a little bit on this side. This end was pretty consistent before I started the blocking process, so I'm okay with it hanging off. Otherwise, you could get a longer piece of cardboard or a longer board, or just get another board and stick it to the side there. But I'm going to start, and I'm gonna make sure, the trick here is to make sure it's lined up really nicely and evenly. So I'm gonna line up this row right along my edge here. I'm going to stretch it and make it the width that I want it to be when it's dried. I'm gonna take my little push pin, pop it in right there at the corner, and at the corner on the other side. Gonna go down a couple more rows, get it spread out evenly as I can. Pop another pin in on the side. You could even pop another pin in on the side. And I'm just gonna keep doing this all the way down. I'm just gonna kind of stretch it out, position it how I want it to be when it's all said and done. Make sure it's nice and even. Pop a pin in on either side. And you can do more pins or less pins. I like doing as many as I have on hand just because it helps everything dry out a little bit better. Just because it helps everything stay a little more even. And again, this is the side here that's not getting as stretched out. You can see how much thinner this side is. So right now it's not taking too many pins along the way. Keep in mind that however you pin this, that's the shape it's going to dry in, and that's the shape it's going to try to hold as you go forward with the project. So make sure that you're being pretty careful and consistent as you go along. All right, here I'm going to need to start doing some more stretching, as you can see. You can also do some pins towards the middle if it's kind of sagging one way or the other. So as you can see, I ran out of thumbtacks. I thought I had more than I actually did. So I'm gonna position some of these a little bit different. Also, I personally think more is better than less with you doing this method. As you can see, I have some spots here where it kind of has this little bowed in and out. That doesn't necessarily mean that when it's all said and done, the whole side's gonna be wavy like that, but it does mean that these sections are gonna be stretched more than this section. These sections will be. So if you think you need more pins there, don't hesitate to throw in a few extra pins just to get it the shape that you need it to be. So this is the basic idea. You can see now just from looking at this visually that when we first started, it was really wavy. If you remember from the beginning of this video, this side was a lot thicker than this side. But the hope is that by blocking it, it'll stretch this side out so that when it dries, this side will kind of stretch longer, and we will make up for my mistake in changing hook sizes. So I'm just gonna let this dry. I usually let things dry for about 24 hours. Just make sure you let it dry completely before you take it off. Then once it's dry, we're just gonna take out all the push pins, check it out and see if we succeeded, and that's all there is to blocking. All right, so here are my first two items that I have blocked. We have this cardigan piece that I was blocking because I changed my hook size partway through, and so it ended up being really uneven. So this side used to be a lot tighter. And I also have this Tunisian crochet little square. It's in the Tunisian knit stitch. And we're just gonna pop these pins out, and hopefully our pieces will still stay even. So if you remember, this one would ravel up into a little cinnamon roll before we blocked it. So let's see if it stays more open. Ta-da! So you can see that this one still has a bit of a curl. I did this one with a really small hook so that it would curl a lot, so you can see just how drastic of a difference it makes. But you can see, even though it still wants to curl a little bit, it's still able to kind of stay open. And I can block it again, stretch it more. But it got rid of a lot of that curl, even if I didn't totally get rid of it. And if you do your Tunisian projects with a larger hook size, then it will make a huge difference like it did with my checkerboard. All right, now the shawl. So you may see it sliding just a little bit, but this is so much wider than it was initially. So huge improvement, and I'll be able to make this work. And if we hold it up this way, you can see it's a lot more even. So yay for blocking. It's made a drastic difference, so much more even, and my little cardigan is gonna turn out so much nicer just from the simple blocking process. I'm gonna block some of my other items, and I'll show you those when they're done. So I have a few more items that I pinned. I'm gonna unpin these ones and then we'll undo the shawl. So this one's laying really nice and flat. It's a little hard to tell on the camera, but it feels really good in person. This one, you may remember, it had a lot of ripples. I stretched it out, put a lot of pins in there just to keep it really stable and even. So let's take these pins out and see how it does. So if we look at it now, it's staying a lot flatter than it previously was. Hold it up. Corners are nice and square, edges are nice and crisp. And if I wanted to lay this on like a table and use it as a doily or something, it'll lay nicely, and we got completely rid of that wrinkle that we had before. All right, on to the shawl. Okay, so this looks a lot more even than it did. It's still not perfect because of, you know, whatever mistakes she ended up making there, we're not quite sure. I think it looks a lot better than it did though. Yeah, let's kind of fold it in half and in half so you can see just how. Which way? Let's go this way. So yeah, I feel like this is a lot more even than it was. It's kind of, yeah, I think overall it's more even. You know, there's still extra fabric on here, but we were able to stretch the side out so it's a little bit more even. You want to put it on? So there you have it. That is the process of blocking, and hopefully you got the feel that blocking can make a huge difference. Now, I still don't block a lot of my items, but with some of these items, if you're doing something that's like filigree crochet, like the charts and all, like a doily, if you're doing a clothing piece, like my cardigan piece here, this looks so much better, I can't get over this, or like the poncho, it can really help. Or even if you're just doing something with Tunisian crochet to help with the quilling. I'll show you one last tip with the Tunisian crochet. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did this really tight, so that's why it's still curling up a little bit on the ends. But something you can do if you find that your project is still curling up a lot, if this is the way my stitches run, so like these are my rows going across this way, I can roll it backwards like this. Leave it rolled up like this for a bit, and that also helps kind of reverse the curve, if you will, and you kind of stretch it while it's like that. And I've had it sitting like that, and that's also helped it loosen up, so that's just an extra bonus tip in there. But I hope that this process helps you, and if you use it on a project and it makes a big difference like it did for us on some of these projects, let me know in the comment below. Also, thank you to Beck Pie for helping me today, and that's our video, so happy crafting! Disappeared! But we can see it through the hole. Okay, that's just #magician fails.